There's a pattern scientists have noticed across nearly every culture on Earth. When people describe their ideal partner, a specific word keeps appearing. Not kind, not successful, not even attractive. Exotic. Something about unfamiliarity pulls at us, deeply, almost involuntarily. And for decades, psychologists and evolutionary biologists have been racing to understand why. Because the answer isn't what most people expect. We live in a world that's more globally connected than ever. People are meeting across cultures, languages, and continents at a rate that would have seemed impossible just 50 years ago. And yet, the psychology driving who we feel drawn to hasn't changed much at all. What draws someone to a person from a completely different world? Is it just curiosity? Is it hardwired into our biology? Or is there something deeper, something our minds are doing beneath the surface that we haven't fully understood? By the end of this video, you'll see exactly what the science says, and one particular finding will completely change how you think about attraction. Before we get into the science, we need to get one thing straight. Exotic is one of those words that means something different to almost everyone who uses it. For some people, it's about physical appearance, features that are unfamiliar, striking, rare in their own environment. For others, it's about accent, language, culture, lifestyle. Researchers at the University of Amsterdam, studying cross-cultural attraction, made a key distinction early on: perceptual novelty versus cultural novelty. Perceptual novelty is purely visual, a face structure you're not used to seeing. Cultural novelty goes deeper: different rituals, values, communication styles, even food. And here's the first surprising fact. Studies show that cultural novelty is often more psychologically potent than visual novelty. It's not just about how someone looks. It's about the otherness they carry, the sense that they come from a world you've never entered. Your brain treats that like a puzzle, and the brain loves puzzles it hasn't solved yet. But the deeper question is why? Why would unfamiliarity be attractive at all? Shouldn't we prefer the familiar? Shouldn't we be drawn to what we already know? That logic makes sense until you understand what's happening at the evolutionary level. There's a concept in evolutionary biology called outbreeding advantage. Here's the simplified version. When two individuals from genetically distant backgrounds reproduce, their offspring tend to have stronger immune systems, greater cognitive flexibility, and lower susceptibility to inherited genetic disorders. This isn't a theory. It's been documented in studies of human populations across multiple continents. Nature, in a sense, rewards diversity. And over hundreds of thousands of years, it's possible that our ancestors who were attracted to genetically different mates produced healthier offspring. Those offspring survived. Their preference for novelty got passed on. So when you feel unexpectedly drawn to someone who grew up on the other side of the world, someone who sounds different, moves differently, sees the world through a completely different lens, there's a chance that's not random. That might be an ancient biological signal doing exactly what it was designed to do. But evolution only tells part of the story, because there's a psychological layer on top of the biological one that's even more fascinating. Psychologists have a term for this: the novelty effect in interpersonal attraction. Studies consistently show that humans pay more attention to stimuli that deviate from what they expect. A new face in a familiar crowd, an accent that stands out, a gesture that doesn't match the patterns you've learned. Your brain doesn't just notice these things, it allocates more cognitive resources to them. More attention, more memory consolidation, more emotional weight. And here is where it gets genuinely interesting. Researchers at McGill University ran a series of experiments in which participants rated the attractiveness of faces across different cultural backgrounds. What they found was not that people preferred faces from one particular culture. What they found was that people consistently rated faces as more attractive when those faces were moderately unfamiliar. Not completely foreign, but not identical to what they see every day. They called this the optimal novelty zone. Too familiar, and there's no arousal. Too unfamiliar, and the brain becomes wary, cautious. But in that sweet spot of moderate difference, attraction surged. Think about that for a moment. Your brain literally has a novelty threshold for attraction, and people from different cultures often sit right inside that threshold, familiar enough to feel safe, different enough to feel exciting. Now here's where the research takes a turn that most people never see coming. Because everything we've talked about so far makes exoticism sound purely positive, biologically advantageous, psychologically stimulating, natural and even healthy. But a growing body of research is revealing a much more complicated picture. Studies in social psychology have found that what many people call exoticism in attraction is sometimes not about the person at all. It's about what that person represents. The fantasy of a different world. The projection of qualities onto someone based on where they're from, not who they actually are. This is what researchers call exoticization, and it's distinct from genuine cross-cultural attraction in one crucial way. Genuine attraction engages with the full complexity of another person. Exoticization reduces them to a symbol of their origin. Psychologist Dr. Kamari Campbell of Stanford has written extensively on how this plays out in real relationships, and how quickly that initial exotic pull can collapse when the projection meets the reality. The person from another culture isn't a portal to a different world. They're a person, complex, contradictory, human. The science suggests that the most durable forms of cross-cultural attraction are the ones built not on novelty alone, but on what novelty opens the door to. So what happens after the novelty fades? This is a question relationship psychologists have studied in long-term cross-cultural couples, and the findings are surprisingly optimistic. Research published in the Journal of Cross-Cultural Psychology found that couples from different cultural backgrounds who maintained high relationship satisfaction over the long term had one thing in common: active cultural curiosity. Not just tolerance of difference, genuine, ongoing fascination with each other's worlds. They kept asking questions. They kept learning. The novelty didn't disappear. It transformed. What started as a pull toward the unfamiliar evolved into a deep, layered understanding of a perspective entirely unlike their own. In a sense, the exotic attraction that brought them together became something more stable. The recognition that this person carries a whole world inside them that you'll never fully finish exploring. That's a different kind of attraction. Less about novelty, more about depth. Less about difference as an aesthetic, more about difference as a source of permanent intellectual and emotional richness. Here's the insight that ties everything together, and it's one most people haven't considered. The science of exotic attraction ultimately points to something profound about how humans are built. We are not drawn to the familiar. Not really. We are drawn to the safe unknown. Things that are different enough to spark curiosity, familiar enough to feel approachable. And this isn't only about romantic attraction. It's how we learn. It's how we grow. It's how we build empathy. Every meaningful encounter with difference, whether it's a person, a culture, an idea, rewires us slightly, expands us. The most interesting finding from decades of cross-cultural attraction research isn't about who people are drawn to. It's about what that pull reveals. It reveals a brain that is fundamentally oriented toward growth, toward the expansion of the known. Romantic attraction, at its most curious and alive, is really just that deep human impulse. The urge to step into a world you don't fully understand yet and find out what it teaches you. And maybe that's not just how we find partners. Maybe that's how we become more human. The science of exoticism in romantic preferences is layered, complex, and still evolving. But at the core of it is something simple and deeply true. We are wired for curiosity. We are drawn to what challenges the edges of our familiar world. Whether that pull leads to a fleeting attraction or a lifelong connection depends on what we do with it. Whether we stay at the surface, in the fantasy, the projection, the symbol, or whether we go deeper, into the actual human being standing in front of us. That choice, it turns out, is where the real psychology begins. If this video changed how you think about attraction, hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more curious minds. Drop a comment with the most fascinating thing you learned. And if you want to go deeper, there's a video on the psychology of long-distance relationships waiting for you right now. Subscribe if you want more content like this. We go deep on the science that explains what it means to be human.